So on my trip to the Getty Museum, it was pretty interesting overall, but my favorite exhibit was the Power and Pathos exhibit, which was an exhibit of ancient Greek Hellenistic bronzes, which was really cool because most of the museum was not as dated as back to what we've been learning in our history class, but this was from the early first 6th century, so that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, we couldn't videotape or take pictures in there just because of all the bronze statues were so old, which makes sense. So I wrote some notes down of what my favorite things were in there. It was really cool because you could tell how old they were, obviously by looking at them, but most of them were missing body parts. But at the same time, a lot of them looked so preserved, and it was crazy how old they are. And it was just awesome to realize that they made that so long ago, and they're still intact. One of the weird things that I noticed about the bronze Hellenistic statues was that they didn't have eyes, which was super creepy. They just had holes where the eyes would be, so I found that a little bit odd. My favorite statue, though, was the Alexander the Great statue, because we could learn about him in class. But also because it was really cool because he's up on a horse, and he's supposed to have a sword in his hand, but the sword's gone. Obviously it fell off, just like most of the body parts on some of the statues did. But he's raising his hand in victory, which is really cool because he was known to have never lost a battle. So I just thought that was a really cool statue. So that's kind of a little summary of my favorite things from the museum.
Okay, so on our trip to the Getty Center, there was a lot of interesting things that we saw because I'd never been there before, so it was pretty cool to see the Power and Pathos exhibit on the first visit, so it was pretty cool. There was a lot of interesting things that were there, and the Power and Pathos exhibit was definitely my favorite because it was just cool to see all the bronze sculptures and everything from the Hellenistic period and everything that we talked about in class. So it was kind of cool to kind of relate it to what we learned in class. Out of all the statues, mine would have had to have been, my favorite had to have been the victorious athlete. And we read a little bit about it, and it was about back when they won back when they won in the Olympics, they had to prove themselves that they were worthy enough to become a statue. So they had to prove themselves 3 times. And when they finally proved themselves, they were able to become a statue. And this statue, specifically this one, they found it and they were going to use it for scrap metal. And they took it and the feet broke off. And when they were on their way to go somewhere else, the boat crashed, so it sank, and it had to they found it in the bottom of the ocean. So it was pretty cool to see that even though that happened, that it still was preserved, and it still looked really, it was in pretty good shape. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, out of everything that we saw, it was pretty cool to see that. So yeah.
So we went to the Getty Museum, located in LA. It was a fun experience, definitely a good experience. I recommend a lot of people go to it. Full of information. One of the good things about this museum is that it had a broad range of art, not only just paintings and drawings, but a lot of sculptures, texts, things like that, and a lot of them were arranged by era, so it was a chronological thing that you could follow and made it very easy, and yeah, just very easy for people to go there and kind of follow along with the growth of society in these different places. They had a lot of collections from medieval times and the early Renaissance, manuscripts covering topics kind of social life and religion, which is good. There was a lot of photographs there kind of depicting early European life and kind of the growth that way as well. There were 4 pavilions that were at this place. There was the East Pavilion, North, West, and South. And the East Pavilion included a lot of it focused a lot on a lot of art, kind of statues and sculptures and things from the Dutch, French, Flemish, Spanish areas. And this was from around 1600 to about 1800. So that was pretty cool. The South Pavilion was about 18th century paintings. A lot of this was from Greece. So that was really cool to see there too. Stuff was very interesting. And then the West Pavilion was primarily sculptures from about 17 to about 1900, if I recall. About 17 to 1900, and those were also good. They had a lot of photographs of the areas in which they found these sculptures in. So I remember there was actually like a sculpture found under in the ocean, and it had a picture of it, and then it had the sculpture sitting right next to it. So it was kind of cool to see how they found these things and they brought them back. And then the North Pavilion were paintings dating up to about 1600, as well as medieval and Renaissance sculptures. So that was kind of cool. It kind of covered a lot of different things, a lot of kind of aspects of life, not only from the Roman era, but like I said, like the Dutch, Flemish, Spanish areas in the world. So it was very diverse with a big focus on kind of like the Greece way of life. There's a lot of paintings and drawings and things like that. It was a good time, good experience. I definitely recommend everybody to go to it if they're interested in it whatsoever. I know I had a great time, so that's what I learned at the Getty Museum.
Overall, I think the trip to the Gettysburg Museum was very interesting. There was a lot of exhibits and a lot of interesting things that caught my eye. But there is one thing that really caught my eye was that those two sculptures, I forget which exhibit it was or what they were called, but there's two sculptures, and at the end of the hall, they had a picture of where they found them, and they found them on the bottom of the ocean, covered in all this algae and all this seaweed and stuff like that. And I thought it was pretty interesting that they actually found them way at the bottom of the ocean, and they figured out where they came from, what they were, who they were, and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Other than that, it was a great place to go visit. Learned a bunch of new things that I didn't know already. Um, but other than that, it was a good experience, and I'm glad we got to do this.